الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله هيا على الصلاة هيا على الصلاة هيا على الفلاح هيا على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي فضل الإسلام على سائر الأديان وفضل أمة الإسلام على سائر الأمم وفضل محمدا صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم على الخلق أجمعين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له قيوم السماوات والأراضين بعث نبيه محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم رحمة للعالمين وأشهد أن محمدا صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم عبد الله ورسوله بلغ حقيقة رسالة ربه وأفضل الأمانة ونصح للأمة وجاهد لله حق جهاده حتى أتاه اليقين فسبحانك اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم عما بعد. Brothers and sisters in Islam, we thank the Almighty Allah for giving us another opportunity to be here. We thank Him for His mercies that He's bestowed upon us. We bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except the Almighty Allah. We also bear witness that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His servant and His messenger. Today, as usual, is a Friday, the 29th day of Jumad al-Ula, 1444 years after the hijrah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It also corresponds, I believe, with the 23rd day of December 2022. Without saying much, the times really depict the subject of discussion. We are in the end of the year, and obviously some festivities and some festivals and some holidays are coming around. What then is the position of a Muslim within all these activities that are coming up? You know more than I do that billions of dollars are going to be spent in the next week. And these kinds of monies are spent more than any other time of the year. I'm not here to give you a history about the activities that are going to come up, but just a reminder of how to carry yourself within these activities as a Muslim. Know very well that the Julian Gregorian calendar was built upon a system of paganism and idolatry. January was derived from the Roman god called Janus, which has two faces. One face saying farewell to the old year, and then the other face welcoming the new year. So the Romans used to celebrate 31st December as the time where they welcomed their new year. Funny enough, in the past couple of years, I don't know if this is being done in America, but back home in Africa, funny enough, we have Muslims reading the Quran on 31st night. They are thanking Allah in welcoming the new year. I don't know where they got that from. February from another god called Februs. March from the Roman god of war called Mars. April from Aprilis or Aphrodite. May from Maya. June, Juno. July from Julius Caesar. August, Augustus Caesar. September was the 7th month. October was the 8th month. November was the 9th month. And December was the 10th month. It was in 4 BC that Julius Caesar added 2 months to the calendar. He added January and February to it. So when you go out there as a Muslim celebrating 25th of December, you are celebrating the birthday of the Roman god of war called Mars. At the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, Christian bishops at the order of Constantine sat down and then they had a surgical methodology on Christianity. They changed the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday, and then they created the birthday of Jesus Christ to be on the 25th of December because the Romans celebrated the god of war on 25th of December, whose name was Mars. So they brought Christ and Mars and put it together and formed one word, Christmas. So as a Muslim, having this at the back of your mind, how do you carry yourself throughout this period? What is your identity as a Muslim? It's very important, because if you don't stand for anything, if you don't stand for one thing, you fall down for anything. As a Muslim, what is your hawiyah? What is your istiqlaliyah? What is your mindset? What is your thinking as a Muslim? Are you a Muslim by accident, or are you a Muslim by practice? It's very, very important, especially for people like us who are living in this part of the world, whereby on the road, in the streets, on the television, on the internet, on the radio, we are being bombarded with all these ideologies. How do we have a mindset that is going to sieve, all this information that we are being bombarded with? There's always an example for us in the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his Sahaba. At their time, they lived with Christians, they lived with Jews in Medina, they lived with hypocrites, they lived with the polytheists that were around there. But then you realize that the Sahaba were a distinct community of people. Even within all these waves of cosmopolitan ideologies, the Sahaba were very distinct. Even in their dressing, they were very distinct. They were different. The Prophet Muhammad went to an extreme, to the point whereby even when you see a Muslim, you know this is a Muslim. He told them, for liha, grow your beards and then clean off your mustaches, because the Jews grow their mustaches. Even in dressing, the Prophet Muhammad wanted us to be a different and a unique community of people. You find that the Sahaba had this strong sense of Iman and a strong self-esteem about Islam. They were not fazed by the developments that they see other communities have. They are not fazed by the advancement of other societies. What they have, the ideas that they have, the policies that Islam has brought for them is what pleases their eyes. They don't care what other people have. They don't peep onto the other side to see what ideologies or what policies they are preferring. That is why Umar ibn Khattab said, "Kunna adillah, fa'azzana Allah bil Islam. In ibtaghayna al-izzata bi ghayri al-Islam adallana Allah." He said, we were weaklings and the Almighty Allah uplifted us with Islam. If at any point in time we were seeking approval, or we are seeking power, or we are seeking importance, or we are seeking relevance, not with Islam, the Almighty Allah will bring us back down. And sadly, that is the state of the Ummah today. We're seeking approval, we're seeking importance, we're seeking relevance in issues or with people that do not even care whether we exist or not. And that's very painful. And then the young generation is seeing the older generation do this, and then the young generation is even worse off, with all due respect. And I believe these times that we find ourselves in are very important times that remind ourselves of the importance of Tawheed, of the importance of sticking to the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If we really want to have the next generation of Muslims, when we are away, for them to practice Islam the way it's supposed to be. So, Iman, wallahi, having that God consciousness in our hearts, having that self-esteem with Islam, that the Almighty Allah tells us, Al-Yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati wa raditu lakum al-Islam dina. Today I have perfected your religion. I've made everything clear for you. I've given you all my mercies. You don't need to look at other people outside for any form of guidance, for any form of development, for any form of positive attributes. I'm not saying we can't copy from other communities what is beneficial. That's not what we're saying. And this brings us to the next point, that our living or interaction with other people from other ideologies or other faiths or other policies, we are supposed to rather pick from them the positives that they have. That's what we're supposed to. That is why the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent Zayd ibn Thabit to go and study the Hebrew language in 17 days. So that you were able to understand the Hebrew text, the messages, the languages, the technologies, the ideas that they have. Zayd ibn Thabit spent only 17 days in learning a whole language. So it's important for us that our interactions with non-Muslims, our interactions with other people of other faith, what do they have of benefit that we'll pick from them and then implement it in our lives, and it will be a better community. With all due respect, what do we copy from them? We are so obsessed with the other communities. We are not obsessed with the doctors that they have, or the lawyers that we have, or the engineers that we have. We are rather obsessed with their entertainers. And they themselves, they don't hold these entertainers in high regard. So you find a Muslim, he wants to look like PDD. You find a young Muslim, he's interested in what is going on in the life of Kanye West. You find a young Muslim, he's only interested in Drake. You find a young Muslim, he wants to be like Eminem. You find a young Muslim, he wants to be like LeBron James. You find a young Muslim, he wants to be like this. The other sisters want to be like Cardi B. They want to be like Lil Kim. They want to be like Kim Kardashian. These are the people that entice our young people and are infiltrating our mindset. You find a young girl in hijab, but then she wants to walk like Kim Kardashian. Yes, she wants to be a Muslimah, she's a Muslimah. But then the ideologies and then the thoughts that are moving around her mind is that is the pinnacle of success in life. Beyonce is the pinnacle. So she is a Muslimah, yes, she believes in Allah. But then she sees in Beyonce something that she wants to pick up. And this is a recipe for disaster. When you go into the history of Islam, during the golden age of Islam, the Muslim communities in the translation movement, where they picked books from other societies and they translated them into the Arabic language for the benefit of the Ummah. What did they translate? Books in science and technology. That's what they translated. And it becomes so prominent that Al-Ma'mun, the Caliph at that time, if you write a new book in any of the sciences, or you translate any book from any language into the Arabic language, the book is weighed and then you are paid its weight in gold. That's how important they took these sciences from other generations, of other groups, of other societies. But then the Aqidah of Islam was pristine. It got to a point whereby Muslim jurists and Muslim scholars will read other ideologies and then they will fight them and debate them in ilm al-kalam and the stuff. So, whatever we are going to pick from other societies should be positive. In our dressing, in our speech, in our walk, It must be very, very distinct. The third point is, how independent are we in terms of the ideologies that come forth, the thoughts that we process in our minds? How garnished are those thoughts with Islam? Because let's understand a fact. Islam is not a part-time job, with all due respect. It's a full-time job. Udkhulu fi silmi kafa. It's a full-time job. It's not when you please or when you want or when you want. No. The Almighty Allah needs your presence. Astaghfirullah. The Almighty Allah demands your presence. He demands your attention. It's not a need. He doesn't need it. He demands it from you. So if you believe the Almighty Allah created you, and the Almighty Allah is your sustainer, He is your cherisher, and He is your provider, then He demands from you full concentration, except in other situations whereby your human shortcomings is going to take effect. But other than that, the Almighty Allah demands our full representation. The next point has to do with our morals, morality. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says in an authentic narration that بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I was sent to perfect people's manners. And this is a broad subject. That what are the manners of the Muslim? How well did the Muslims live with other communities, to the extent that those communities were in awe of the Muslims and then they accepted Islam? Umar ibn Khattab said, call people to Islam silently, without using words. They said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, how are we going to call people to Islam when we are not speaking? He said, through your manners, through your acts. Let there be a distinction between yourself and other people who are not Muslims in every place you find yourself. Let them really acknowledge that, yes, this is Islam, that's the beauty of Islam, and then you emanate some sweet fragrance from your lifestyle. But if there's no difference between yourself and other people in your workplace, in your community, in your neighborhood, then Islam does not have any effect in you. That is why most often than not, the Sahaba and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they didn't need to preach or say anything to people for them to accept Islam. People saw in them the good qualities and then they accepted Islam. I always use back home Ghana as an example when I'm speaking about this. The Muslims in Ghana generally are called Pepe-Fo. And the word Pepe actually is an adulterated word called Peri-Peri-Fo. And Peri-Peri in the Asante language means people who are just and fair. So when the Muslims came, because of their justness and fairness in their business dealings, the locals called them Peri-Peri-Fo, people who are just. And that name has lingered up till now, that when you hear Pepe in Ghana, it means he's a Muslim. The forefathers who brought Islam to Ghana were so just in their dealings that people were willing to accept Islam because he has brought his words. He's not going to cheat you. He's not going to deceive you. He's not going to fraud you. He's not going to scam you. If it is 1 + 1 = 2, it is 2, and it is clear. And they were open and nice, and things were moving on smoothly. But sadly, what are the morals of Muslims today, even in doing business? How do we deal with non-Muslims? Sometimes we are so carried away that, no, he's a kafir, so let's deal with him any way we want. No, you are sending a remark to that person. I read a story on Facebook, I don't know how true it is. They said an imam in a new imam in a neighborhood boarded a bus. And then he paid the driver. And then the driver intentionally gave him more change than usual. The imam sat in the car. He got to a point where he was going to alight, and then he counted the money, and then he realized that the driver has given him more than enough. Now Shaitan started playing with his mind. Return the money back to the driver or go away with it. Return back the money to the driver or go away with it. He pulled for his stop. He got to where the driver was. He was going to alight, and Almighty Allah grounded him in Hidayah, and then he told the driver, sorry, you gave me more money than enough, so this is your change back. And the driver told him, I'm thinking of accepting Islam, and I heard you're the new imam in the community, so I'm testing to see what Islam is from the imam. So I gave you extra change, more than usual, and you returned it back. I'm coming to the masjid later to accept Islam. The Imam got down from the bus and then he held next post because he was shivering and shaking. He said, I nearly sold Islam for $1. I nearly sold Islam for $1. How do we deal with these people in these times? In the situations that we find ourselves in the places that we work. If there's any undoing or wrongdoing, are we the ones spearheading it, or we are the ones trying to advise against it? Our young people that go to the public schools, what effect do they take of Islam into the public schools or the universities, whereby you see effect of Islam in them and then in those friends that they have? Or we are all whitewashed with all this craze, these materialistic tendencies that we find young Muslims, when they are walking, when they are talking, whatever they are doing, doesn't have any semblance with Islam at all. I'm not saying all of us should dress in thobes and then kufis and going through town. That's not what we are saying. Islam goes beyond that. The fragrance of Islam that we have goes beyond us seeing in a thobe and then having a beard. Islam goes, it's all part of Islam, but then you emanate some goodness, some qualities, some morality that these people, when they see you, they don't have any option. But then, even if they don't accept Islam, that will reduce the level of antagonism they have towards Islam. You know the story of Thumamah ibn Usal, Sayyidu Yamama, who was a bounty hunter. He hunted Muslims for a living. The companions captured him and then they brought him to Medina and then they tied him in the masjid. They came to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he said, Ya Rasulullah, we have captured Thumamah. He said, have you given him food? They said, Ya Rasulullah, we are speaking of Thumamah and you are saying, are we giving him food? Thumamah is a bounty hunter. He kills us. He said, give him food. They gave Thumamah food. He ate. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him, Ma wara'aka ya Thumamah. What brings you here, ya Thumamah? He told him, Ya Muhammad, in taqtul dhadam. If you kill me by law that my people will come and revenge. But if you let me go, I will thank you. But then, as for presenting Islam to me, for me to accept Islam, is non-negotiable. Don't bring it onto the table. He spent 3 days with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Masjid of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a captive, and every day that was the conversation going on. On the third day, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told the Sahaba, "Atliqu Thumamah, let him go, free him." When he was leaving, he said, "Ya Rasulullah," he said, "Muhammad, they have my horse, they have my weapons, I need them back." The Prophet said, "Give him all his things." They gave him, and the Sahaba were confused. They were in awe. This guy has been killing us. You're letting him go. Thumamah left. After some few hours, he came back. When he entered the masjid, he said, "Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu annaka rasulullah." The Sahaba were like, "What's wrong with you, man? We were with you all these 3 days. You could have accepted Islam easily. You wasted our time." He said, "No, I didn't waste your time. If I had accepted Islam under captivity, people would have said I was afraid for my life. That is why I accepted Islam. But after you let me go, I'm coming back willingly because I live with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the masjid. I saw how he treated the rich and the poor. I saw how he dealt with people. I saw how he was nice and cool and easygoing with people. His morals were on standard. And I realized that no way, this man is really a prophet of the Almighty Allah. Our morals and how we deal with people. You know the hadith of that Arab Bedouin who came into the masjid and he urinated in the masjid? What did the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam do? The Sahaba were like, "Hey, let's beat him." He said, "No, wait. Let him finish his urinating." The Prophet was concerned about the guy's health more than the dirtying of the masjid. Because if they were to rush upon him and then his urine cut off, he might just have a disease, he might just fall sick because of that. The Prophet was concerned about his health and non-Muslim's health or an Arab Bedouin's health more than the cleanliness of the masjid. He said, "No, wait." After he has finished urinating, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told the Sahaba, "Just get a bucket of water and pour it over there." And then he called the guy. "You see, this place is a place where we worship. It's a holy place. Things like this are not being done here. If you need to do this thing, there are other places for that. You can go." The Arab Bedouin came out and he said, "Allahumma arhamni wa Muhammadan wa la tarham ma'ana ahadan." He said, "Ya Allah, bless me and Muhammad. Those other guys, forget about them. أقول ما تسمعون واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين من كل ذنب فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم." أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا عاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبد الله ورسوله أما بعد. We are speaking about the identity of a Muslim in a world filled of tribulations and trials and different forms of ideologies, and especially ideological warfare. What is the identity of a Muslim? Sincerity in act, wallahi, is very important. Al-Ikhlas. Whatever we do as Muslims, let's put Allah first. So anything that you do, ask yourself, is Allah pleasing? Will Allah be pleased with what I'm doing? It's very important. That way you will have a self-check of whatever activities you're doing. But if it is open door policy, whereby whatever I'm doing, I don't care whether Allah is pleased or not, then you know very well that this is a red flag. Sincerity. Do it for the sake of the Almighty Allah. Whatever act you find yourself in, whatever you're going, you know very well that if you go out 31st night cheating, you know that Allah is not going to be pleased with that. You know very well. You know that. You know very well that when you pass through that liquor store, the Almighty Allah does not allow that. The Almighty Allah doesn't believe that. He doesn't accept that. Al-Ikhlas, doing it for the sake of the Almighty Allah. And in Sharia, there are two conditions necessary for the acceptance of good deeds. The first one is you do it for the sake of the Almighty Allah. The second one is you do it how the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ taught us. These are the two things. They don't have a third brother and they are twins. They always move together. You don't do things for the sake of the Almighty Allah, but then you don't do it the way the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ taught. And then you don't do things the way the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ taught us to do, but then you don't do it for the sake of the Almighty Allah. Example. Today is Jummah. You come to the Masjid and you say, Kai, the weather is very nice. After Khutbah, today Jummah, we are going to pray 6 rakats. It's not going to be accepted because the Prophet Muhammad didn't teach us Jummah 6 rakats. He taught us only 2 rakats, and that's it. The other thing is Maghrib. You come into the Masjid, people have finished prayer, some of them are doing their nawafil, some of them are doing their adhkar, and then you find somewhere in the corner, Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. And people tell you, we have a new Imam in town. If you do that so that people will praise you, it's the Almighty Allah doesn't need that. He needs you to do it sincerely between Him and you. It is a trademark of a Muslim. It is the identity of the Muslim that Allah is going to judge you, so you're doing it for Allah. I've repeatedly said this in my Sirah class. I saw a video on Facebook, and the guy was from Bangladesh. He was selling some groceries. And then the person coming to buy the groceries saw him pick the container or the plastic bag that he was going to put the grocery into the plastic bag. And then he weighed the plastic bag first. Empty plastic bag. It was 4 grams. And then he told the guy buying the produce was that this bag weighs 4 grams. And you want to buy, let's say, maize or millet of 100 grams. So if I pour the maize into this bag, the whole thing must weigh 104 grams. Because 4 grams is for the plastic bag. If I give you a whole bag with grains and I weigh them all together, they all become 100 grams. It means I gave you the grains 96 grams, then the 4 grams is for the bag. I've cheated you for 4 grams. So he's weighing the bag. So in the end, when they weighed it, everything was 104 grams because the bag was 4 grams. And then the buyer asked him, why are you doing this? He said, I'll be questioned on the day of Qiyamah in front of the Almighty Allah. I don't want to come to Qiyamah and then only 4 grams would delay me from entering Jannah. Sincerity of act. Some of us work in big institutions and all we do is we add zeros to the amount. If it's $100 and then we add 0 at the end, it becomes what? 1,000. That's what we do, some of us. And some of us are part of the underhand dealings that happens in the system. And then we blame government officials of being corrupt, we blame other people of being corrupt, but we are saints. But in the end, we are the ones who add the zeros, we are the ones who add all kinds of multiplications and additions because we've done accounting and we know how to find our way through Excel. Finally, responsibility. The Muslims of old were responsible people. they took whatever responsibilities on their neck seriously. Fathers that we are in the masjid, our duties to our wives and our kids. يا أيها الذين آمنوا قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا. That is your responsibility. You come to the masjid regularly and pray, but your wife and your kids, they are far away from the deen. You fast Mondays and Thursdays of Ramadan, but your wife and kids, you don't care whether they pray or not. You're only interested in buying them the latest toys. You are an upright Muslim, doing everything that the Almighty Allah needs from you, or demands from you, demands from you, requires from you. But then, your family, what is their level of Iman? What is their level of Deen? What is the level of the Quran reading in your family, in your home? I always say this, as a Muslim, don't ever do the mistake of meeting the Almighty Allah when you can't look into the Quran and read yourself. Don't do that mistake. Don't do that mistake. That you are a Muslim for all these years and you can't open the Quran and then read yourself. I'm not saying be a scholar of tafsir and hadith and seer. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying as the average Joe Muslim, you should be able to open the Quran and read any portion of it. Do you know why? You spend hours learning a trade. Some of you go to learn Spanish. Some of you are learning Russian. Some of you are learning Chinese. Some of you are learning all forms of languages and all forms of courses. You are enrolled in evening classes, weekend classes, sandwich classes, business classes. You are enrolled in all these things because what? You want to make the dunya easy and better for you. But then the shortcut to your akhirah, you are playing with it. Wallahi, if you do that mistake and then you meet Allah on the day of Qiyamah when you don't know how to read the Quran, I don't know what is going to happen. When you get there, you find out. What do we hold high esteem in the dunya now as Muslims? What is of the most important to you? What is the most important thing to you? What is the most significant thing to you now? Is it entering Jannah or is it enjoying the dunya? You choose for yourself. Because the Prophet Muhammad told us that it got to a time whereby a Muslim living Islam is like holding a coal of fire in your hands. It's burning you. If you throw it away, you've thrown away a diamond. If you hold it still, it continues to burn you. It's your choice. Jannah doesn't belong to me. Neither does Jahannam belong to me. There are criteria for entering Jannah. There is criteria for entering Jahannam. I might be here speaking to you, but when you meet the requirements and the demands of the Almighty Allah more than I do, you will get a better Jannah than mine. Each for himself, Allah for all of us. Responsibility in Islam is singular and individual. وَلَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى. Nobody is going to carry the load for any other person on the day of Qiyamah. It is in dunya that you see me, welcome Sheikh, thank you Sheikh, let me take this back from Sheikh, I have this khidmah for you. On the day of Qiyamah, يَوْمَ يَفِرُّ الْمَرْءُ مِنْ أَخِيهِ وَأُمِّهِ وَأَبِيهِ وَصَاحِبَتِهِ وَبَنِيهِ لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مِّنْهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ شَأْنٌ يُغْنِيهِ وُجُوهٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ مُسْفِرَةٌ ضَاحِكَةٌ مُسْتَبْشِرَةٌ وَوُجُوهٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ عَلَيْهَا غَبَرَةٌ تَرْهَقُهَا قَتَرَةٌ أُولَئِكَ هُمُ الْكَفَرَةُ الْفَجَرَةُ. The identity that you practice in the dunya is what you are going to wake up with on the day of Qiyamah. If you behave like a chameleon with the Almighty Allah, on the day of Qiyamah, you will find all forms of trials and tribulations. Stick steadfast with the Almighty Allah. Stand where the Almighty Allah wants you to stand. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا تتنزل عليهم الملائكة ألا تخافوا ولا تحزنوا وأبشروا بالجنة التي كنتم توعدون نحن أولياؤكم في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة ولكم فيها ما تشتهي أنفسكم ولكم فيها ما تدعون نزلا من غفور رحيم. Very those who say we believe in the Almighty Allah. ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا, and then they stand steadfast with the Almighty Allah. تَتَنَزَّلُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ. The Almighty Allah will send to them angels. On the day that they are going to die, they are on the sick bed, they are going to die, the Almighty Allah sends them angels. And then they look at the angels and they're like, what's going on? And the angels will tell them, أَلَّا تَحْزَنُوا أَلَّا تَخَافُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. Don't be afraid that you've seen us, because where you are going is a positive place. وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. Don't be in grief, don't be in despair, because you are leaving wives and kids behind. The Almighty Allah is going to take care of them. Where you are going is safe, and what you are leaving behind is also safe. It's like you ask the angels, who are you? Then they tell you, نَحْنُ أَوْلِيَاؤُكُمْ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ. We are your partners, we are your lovers in the dunya. When you come to the masjid regularly, we were there with you. When you visited the sick, we were there with you. When you eschew all the evil and the badness, we were there with you. نَحْنُ أَوْلِيَاؤُكُمْ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيا. In the dunya, you are partners. وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ. Don't worry, even in the akhirah, we'll hold your hands and enter Jannah with you. The Almighty Allah, when you do business with Him, you always win. Be careful how you invest with Almighty Allah. Do you invest positively or do you invest negatively? ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. ربنا إنك جامع الناس اليوم لا ريب فيه إن الله لا يخلف الميعاد. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. قوموا إلى صلاتكم يرحمكم الله.